Welcome to First Alarm Family First. I'm Jen Herrera,
And I'm Carolyn Acosta.
and we are both very excited to be with you once again. Before we get started, we have a very special shout out to a company who is our first sponsor. So just a reminder, we are here all about first responders and being the loved ones of first responders. And oftentimes first responders are the first people on the scene trying to bring calm and care to a moment of crisis. If you or someone you know has been involved in a car accident, keep lowercase law in mind. Lowercase law, again, shout out for being our very first sponsor. While most personal injury firms in Florida charge up to 40% of the settlement, lowercase fee, their fee will never exceed 30%. So again, contact lowercase law if you are involved in an accident. And thank you again, lowercase, for being our very first sponsor. We love to see your support. We truly appreciate it. On that note, Carolyn, how have you been? How's your week been?
It's been good, pretty busy. We had that photo shoot that was great. We had a wonderful day there with the girls and getting some work done as well. But it's been good. We've been getting ready for this coming up weekend too, with the pig roast, the pig competition, and also going to go to the Panthers game. So we're excited about that.
I know I'm excited about the Panthers game too.
Yeah.
When I was looking at the videos, like the raw videos that were sent to us from behind the scenes of the photo shoot, there were a few like really cute, fun, light moments that the
Mhm.
photographer who we work with captured, Alejandra Escalante, and seeing you smile and the two of us laughing. I think that that is really important for people to see, Carolyn, because in a moment of unimaginable grief, you are still living your life. And it's commendable for someone who is watching this and struggling. What would you
Mhm.
say to them?
Just keep on looking forward. Honestly, try to surround yourself with strong people. I think that helps a lot. Um, and just have a lot of faith. Again, like I said from the beginning, I feel like God has a plan. I don't know what it is. I do question it at times, like I'm human, but I feel like there's a bigger plan out there. And for whatever reason, I'm just going with it.
I know that you had mom duties at the carnival this week.
Yes, I actually worked with a friend, Rochelle. We had worked a Filipino booth. The food was phenomenal.
Yeah. And
I
the
mean, I was
kids,
working and eating too.
listen, carnival food, right? And I bet the kids had a great time.
Yeah, he had a wonderful time. He said that it wasn't as packed as usual, but it's like being at home. He goes to school there, so the fair is always like what they look forward to all year.
I'm looking forward to today's show. I'm very excited. Doug White is joining us. He is a retired, not only veteran, which is appropriate because yesterday was Veterans Day, but also a police officer. He worked in law enforcement for 20 plus years. And you stumbled across the podcast and then you sent it to me. And then I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we have to do this. Can you let everybody know how you got a hold of him and how you got him to say yes?
Yeah, so what I usually do is I'll go for my morning like workout, usually a run or walk. And I like to listen to podcasts as well. So I was listening to one that he was on. It was about first responders. And I stumbled across it when he was talking about his struggles too in his career, that he found himself in a dark moment. And then I just kind of felt like, wow, maybe Alex was in that same place. So I was like, let me message him and see if he would respond. And he actually did within hours. And that was really great when he responded and said, I would love to talk to you and chat. And we did. We spoke on the phone and I asked him if he wanted to come on the podcast, and he was more than happy to.
Yeah, and I think part of his story, and I don't want to spoil it, that really caught our attention. Obviously, how honest he is, when
Yeah.
he's speaking on podcasts or interviews, and he wrote a book, and so we'll get that information out. But how he talked about his wife, right, and
Yes.
her role in his
Mhm.
daily recovery and daily efforts, because this is the place we want that. We want families to be able to come here and open up.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And that was one thing that did catch me, was when he was talking about his wife and how she was his like backbone and stuff. Yeah.
And speaking of, Doug is joining us now.
Hey,
Doug, we were
Doug.
just chatting a little bit. It's what we do at the top of our podcast, kind of catching up
Okay.
on our week. I know that you had the chance to meet Carolyn via a phone
Yes.
call. You and I have not had the chance to meet. I'm Jen. Thank you for being
Oh, thanks
here.
for having me. This is This is great. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and speak to y'all and your audience.
We wanted our platform in lieu of what Carolyn went through. I'm married to a firefighter. My father's a retired firefighter. And we have found through conversation and working with other first responders that there is a major disconnect when it comes to the families of first responders and the first responders, and what to ask and when to ask and what to tell. And so when you jumped on, Carolyn was talking about how much credit you give your wife. So I guess let's just dive right into it.
Okay.
Your wife, in a way, was your first responder, is your first responder, in a way.
I was hoping not to even start going down an emotional road today, but right out of the chute, you hit me right where it's supposed to hit me. But yes, I think one of the big words that's been floating around, or the big phrase that's been floating around over the last couple of years, is cultural competence. That if a first responder or a veteran needs to get help, they need to go find someone who's culturally competent. Well, I firmly believe that our culturally competent counselors sitting on the couch next to us, or sitting in the car next to us, or stood at an altar with us, and in my case, more than 24 years ago. There's so many different ways I can go with this, but the people who love us most are actively searching for opportunities to help us. They want to help us. They have they've earned the absolute right to help us, to be there for us. We suit up, the bunker gear, the turnouts, the gun belt, the armor, the whatever uniform it is we wear in the first responder world. We go and we do the things that we do. We know what we're trained for. We know what we're experiencing day in and day out. And we come home and we try to shield our spouses and our families from this, but we don't do a very good job at it. We carry the remains of the day with us. It's with us everywhere we go. It's our shadow, and they see it, but they don't have any control on how they deal with it, because we're not sharing those experiences with them for whatever reason, whether we don't want to relive it ourselves or we don't want to traumatize them. We are traumatizing them. But if we tell them what it is that we've experienced and how they may be able to help, we give them control over the situation. They're not bystanders in this. They have an opportunity to help. So, yes, my wife. Wow. I don't even know where to go with that. We did an event last night for the book launch, and she said, "I'll sit here with you because people want to see my face, but I don't want to say anything." And a spouse who was on the Zoom call, someone we didn't even know, who connected through LinkedIn or wherever, asked the question, and Michelle said, "You know what? I'd like to answer that," and just jumped right in and straight from feelings, and it was great. It really was. So yeah, it's she gets all the credit. The spouses and the families, they get all the credit. They ride with us on shift, whether they want to or not. They are married to us and married to our service.
Yeah, I feel like we're stronger than what you guys, or men and women, feel that we are. We're home, but like you said, we feel everything, and we know all the things that you guys are going through. We just don't know how to approach it, because it's almost like we're put in a box where it's like it's best not to even address any of the things. Just kind of just let them be, respectfully. But we are stronger.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. I've actually said it for years before I even asked for help. I said that the spouses are the strongest ones. I mean, one, they become the de facto parent because we are absent, chasing whatever glory or rented admiration it is that we're searching for during our careers, and trying to make a difference. But they're the ones worried about soccer schedules, baseball schedules, dance schedules, chorus schedules. And by the time we get home, and I mean, this is well documented, and I can certainly speak to my experience in this, by the time I got home, I had nothing. So if it didn't have anything to do with a life or death situation, just make the call. I wasn't interested. I wasn't available for whatever reason. So yes, they carry the lion's share of the familial load, as well as the emotional load of their own stuff and the stuff that we bring home with us. So absolutely, your spouses are the heroes, without a doubt in my mind, and you'll never convince me otherwise.
I love to hear you say that, Doug. So thank you. first of all. It's appreciated. My husband and I joke all the time. He'll be complaining about, not complaining, but, talking about his day, and he'll still say, I wouldn't trade places with you. So he doesn't want to trade in raising 2 teenage daughters and their schedules with going on shift. He'll take going on shift. First of all, thank you. Veterans Day was yesterday. I know that you were a veteran as well as law enforcement, so we appreciate your service in more ways than one.
Thank you.
Can you let our viewers know your story? So in addition to being a veteran, you spent 20 plus years in law enforcement right here in Florida.
Yes. Well, in 1993, I joined the Air Force. I enlisted, and I spent 14 and a half years in the Air Force on active duty and in the active reserve. I got off of my first stint of active duty in 1997 and came back here to Tampa. And I had one goal in mind, and that was to work for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. There was no plan B, and that was it. And so I continued on that path, went to the academy and got hired on. And during that time, I stayed active out here at MacDill. I was at Special Operations Command for my last 10 years. And wearing 2 uniforms between that time and doing my duty out there and working for the sheriff's office on 9/11 that morning before the first tower came down, I got a phone call and they said, we'll see you in the morning. Check. So I left the sheriff's office for 37 months and 18 days back on active duty. And when my active duty tour ended on that set of orders, I came back to the sheriff's office in November of 2004 and went right back to work. Of course, I had to transition from my teammates and the larger mission of what was going on with the then beginning war of terror and switch back into protector and peacekeeper mode here, and also a husband, and soon to be dad. Michelle was 8 months pregnant with our first when I got back to the office. So I was back for about 3 weeks before I went on a very extended leave to be home with her and our daughter. And I did 25 years with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office to the day. I wanted to make sure that I got my service pistol when I retired. So you have to do 25. So you got to get a free gun on the way out the door. So
absolutely.
It was quite the ride. Leaving the sheriff's office and going back on active duty. First, it was an honor to serve with the men and women I served with post 9/11. And it was a double honor to have done that, come back, and then still serve my community. What would you like to know? I will answer any question and speak about anything to anyone. So what would you like to know?
You want to go ahead, or you want me to jump?
Yeah, you served the Hillsborough, and then, so my question is too, when I listened to your podcast and I thought that, I found that it was so nice to see somebody actually be honest and vulnerable and talk about the hardships, the things that they mentally were hit with this career, because this career has all the great things, but there's also the aspect of it's just mentally and physically draining, after so many years. And I know that you were very well respected. My husband was also a very well respected Miami-Dade Air Rescue Lieutenant who was looked at as the guy. They called him the legend, all the things, and I feel like that does put a lot of pressure on someone. So with that being said, like, how would you say, what's your story on that?
Oh, wow. It's, well, as far as honesty and vulnerability, I think the word vulnerability, it is exactly what it is. But I think if you say that to first responders who are trying to be tough and live up to the persona that they have to keep or that's built around them, and that was my case, I think the word vulnerability first brings to mind a weakness. And being honest with yourself and allowing others in that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's absolute courage, because you're putting everything out there for the world. And in my case, I was not strong enough to do that on my own. I tried for years and years to outrun, to overcommit, keep myself busy. I wore my trauma like my skin. I wasn't getting away from it. I suffered in silence for the better part of 20 years. sleepless nights. I didn't sleep. If I slept, it was 2 or 3 hours max. If I dreamt, it was a nightmare. And the only one who saw any of this stuff was Michelle, my wife. I was high functioning. At one point, I was actually promoted to lieutenant. I had a patrol platoon. I had 24 deputies and 4 supervisors. I controlled the northwest portion of the county when I was on shift. And Hillsborough County is one of the larger law enforcement agencies in the country. And we were busy. Again, high functioning. I was crushing everything I was assigned. I was winning by all rights and all outward appearances. But on the inside, I was a shell falling apart. At home, I would spend days on end, often wearing the same thing. When Michelle would get home or the kids would get home, I'd find myself wearing the same thing that I woke up in. So I had to change real quick and maybe do some dishes to make it look like I'd done something during the day. But I fell apart, and my administrative duties were failing. I was failing as a husband. I was failing as a father, and had been for years. Michelle, again, de facto parent, it was her strength and her commitment to our family that kept everything going. She picked up where I was not. And whether I was unable or incapable or didn't recognize it myself. And on October 19th of 2019, I found myself sitting behind a school on duty. I'm staring at an orange traffic cone, and just thought to myself, I have a pistol in my hip. I can take care of this all right now. And I had never had that thought before, and I had been to scores of deaths by suicide, and I understood the mechanics and where people may have been, but I was never in that position myself. And here I am behind this closed down school at 3 a.m. with a pistol in my hand. It shocked me, to say the very least. And I drove around for the next 3 hours. And when I got home, I found Michelle awake. And being awake at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning and no run on her schedule or no kids to be ferried off someplace was odd. And I would find out a lot of years later that she was awake all night praying for me to come home safe. And I found out she had done that for many, many nights, looking for the answers, what to do. And when I walked in that door that morning, all her prayers had been answered. And she asked me if I would consider going to marriage counseling with her. And of course, I dropped to I literally, gun belt on, boots on. I had not taken off the first stitch of uniform. And I found myself on my knees with my hands clasped at the foot of our bed crying. It was the first time I had cried in years. I mean, my best friend had passed away. My grandfather had passed away. We had to put our dog, who was 17 years old, down. And I mean, all of these life things, and I hadn't shed a tear. And here I am inconsolable. And, she didn't know for the previous 6 months that I had considered myself useless, and that she was going to leave me at any moment. She was going to realize that I married way outside of my abilities. And that my reason for continuing was going to walk out the door. And she had no idea, and wouldn't for months later, that 3 hours prior I had a pistol in my hand. And
Wow.
I'm a firm believer that you're not always ready for the lesson or ready for the message, but when you are, God will send a messenger. And I will never, ever be persuaded to believe any other thing other than Michelle. And I've said this on other podcasts, and I believe it to my bones, that she was born for a great number of things, but the most important impact that she's had on my life was to be awake on October 19th, 2019. That's why she's in my life, to have saved me. And again, I wasn't strong enough to have done this by myself. And if she approached me with, "You're broken, get help,"
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't have received that. She knew that if she presented it to me in a way that we needed to get help, we needed to find the way forward together, that I would do anything. And she was right. And I'm grateful.
Which I love that. I love that you said that, because, I look back now and I think I might have approached it just like, you need to go get help versus, if I were to do things differently, I'd probably go, let's go get help, right? It's the same thing. It's just different. Now it's not, you're not the only broken one. Let's go together. I love that. And I think that if there's other spouses out there listening and they're going through the same thing, they might approach it in that way versus just singling him out or her out. I think that's huge.
Well, and it was for me. I think responders like to see themselves in a way that other people don't see them. We're not broken. Even if we know we're having a problem, the problem's with someone else. And if you approach us with, you did this wrong, or we're going to be defensive immediately, especially if we're in a position of crisis. Now, I'm not a crisis manager. I have not been to the CISM classes or any of that. I don't have the capacity for that, and I wish I did. But based on my experience and just having lived in both worlds for a combined 31 years, we're not real susceptible to outside influence. So we need to be handled gently. And as ridiculous as that sounds, we will listen to the people who love us, because honestly, I don't know a single first responder who is not trying to get home. And when we get home, that is our retreat. That's our safe haven. And the people that are there waiting for us to come home will do anything to keep that.
That's why we called this show First Alarm Family First, because the first responder family is a family in itself, but your first family is the family who you get to come home to, hopefully, God willing, after every single shift. Doug, I don't know that, I think this is going to be hard to answer, and I don't know that there is an answer, but for someone who's watching who may have been going through what you have been going through, because obviously the signs of depression, the lack of sleep, the not getting off the couch to change your clothes, that night behind, or early morning hours, I should say, behind that school, staring at that orange cone, not everybody can snap themselves out of that moment and put their gun away and make it home. Do you remember how you were able to do that, or is that a blur?
It's a blur. I mean, it scared me. It was fear. And I think when we get to a point when that's our option and we're looking at that, we've already gone too far. I don't know what pulled me out of that. And I had this conversation with Michelle just a few months ago that, in those days, I didn't see God. I couldn't see God. Everything was dark. I was hopeless. And again, I was high functioning at work. I mean, everything I touched was I was leading a platoon, the best platoon. I mean, just everything was winning until it wasn't. And I saw no hope. I was hopeless. My purpose had gone. I felt useless. And I don't know what it was that pulled me out from that moment. But I think that the people who know us, the people who work with us, our families, if they start seeing these signs, they have to have the hard conversations with us. And it has to be done gently. It's not going to be an easy thing. It can't be an intervention where you walk in and you're ambushed by 50 people. Hey, you're drinking. You can't do that. I think probably the easiest thing to do, if we see a friend that's struggling or one of our spouses struggling, just stop them and put it to them gently. Hey, how's your heart? Where's your heart right now? How are you? Not like, hey, have a great day or what's up. No, you have to be intentional about this.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it, Carolyn? Like what he's saying, how he identified himself and people saw him. And Alex, it's like Doug, when you're describing yourself, you're describing Alex. That's what this sounds like.
And when I was talking to Carolyn, I was like, everybody probably looked at him as the guy. That is the guy. That's who everybody wants to be. And I think the persona that was built around me, and I don't really want to speak to this because it doesn't make me comfortable to speak about it like this, but there were jokes, and actually there was a memo done that was written to the sheriff, and it never went to the sheriff, obviously, but it said, "This is Doug White, MFer." And the joke was, do you know who that is? Didn't you get the memo? And it wasn't something that I did. It was a persona that was built around me because of how I presented. And I had a friend of mine who was one of the greatest leaders I've ever worked for. He asked me when I started going through my troubles and became vocal about all of this. He said, I've always wondered, you always had a one-liner for everything. Everything was follow me. Let's go. We're going to bring the hate. We're doing this. And it was drive, drive, drive. And he said, I always wondered to myself, is Doug always switched on, or is there something else there? And I had to laugh, and I was like, bro, you're the only one that's ever called me on my BS. I had to drive.
Yeah.
I had to keep going because that was the only thing keeping me going. I had to be the guy. And I think when people, not that I think, I have found the more vocal that I've gotten through these podcasts, and now that the book is available, people are reading it, telling me that they never, ever would have believed that I went through this. 20 minutes ago, literally 20 minutes before I clicked get on this meeting with y'all, my sister called me and said that she had finally stopped crying. She finished reading my book this morning. And she said, I'm sorry. I said, for what? She said, we didn't know. She says, I love Michelle more than I ever knew that I could. And I'm so grateful. Thank you. She saved my bubby, and I'm 50 years old. She still calls me Bubby. But it's like, there's nothing to be sorry for. I didn't ask for help. Nobody knew except Michelle.
Nobody knows.
And, hiding in plain sight it's the perfect, message. So.
You talked on a podcast. I don't know if it's in the book yet. I haven't read the book. I know Carolyn ordered it. I can't wait to gift it to first responders in my family. But I did hear you on another podcast, and I think this is very relevant. You talked about over-committing and over-identifying with your profession. I think this is a huge issue with first responders. Understandably, I'm not using the word issue in a bad way. It's you take on this persona and that's it. You're so comfortable no longer having to carry that weight. I can see it all over you when you talk. When did that happen?
Well, that's in the book. The professions, the first responder disciplines, and the veteran and the military service world, we enter them in 18, 19, 22 years old, somewhere in there. Those are the formative years of our lives when we're looking for our tribe and who our adult persona is going to be. We're very mixed up, and then next thing you know, we're having these shared hardships and shared purpose and shared mission with people who are going through these things with us. So we identify with the tough guy mindset. For me, when I started, if I wanted to be counted among the meat eaters, the warriors, and I did desperately. I mean, I was 24 years old when I started with the sheriff's office, and I had to be the tough guy. I had to be the guy, and so you commit to the role. Like my son says, I got to commit to the bit. You commit to the role. You say the things, you do the things, and if there's a fight to be in, you get in the fight. If there's a foot chase, you get in the foot chase. As a firefighter, the better the building is rolling, the better the story is going to be. And so you buy off onto that to the part where you lose yourself and who you're really supposed to be. If I had this conversation, and again, this is in the book, having the conversation with 19-year-old me standing there in boot camp, staring into a mirror, I imagine the guy that I was going to have to be to survive what my purpose on this planet was going to be. I wanted to help people, and I did not realize that it would take 31 years for me to be at a point to have learned everything that I've learned and endured everything I've endured to finally truly help people. And, when trying to figure all of that stuff out is very confusing, because we see ourselves in a way that people don't see us. Other people will see us in ways that we don't consider. And trying to find that balance and turn that on and turn it off in a 12 or 24-hour shift or a 1-year deployment, and turn that off before we walk back into the door, that's the trick. But the other thing that I found out is when I retired, you're this thing for 31 years, and you wake up the next day and you're not that thing anymore. What does that mean? And, you have to become comfortable with the monster that lives inside of you, and realize that monster was necessary for however long you were doing the job. But you don't have to be that monster anymore. You can be friends with it. You can understand it exists, and you can call on it when it's needed. But it doesn't have to be your thing every day. So the answer to what am I now? The answer is anything I want to be. I don't have to drink the poison. I can I can do this without any risk. I can bare my soul because you can't. I don't want to use David Goggins' words here, but it's true. You can't hurt me. I've given it all to you. And I think it was a moral obligation to have these conversations. So yeah, I gave you more than what your question was, but yes, trying to reconcile the shadow and the monster that we have to be, and it has to be part of us, to who we're supposed to be and who we can be now. It's not easy. It takes time and it takes work.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's very admirable. It's very admirable just hearing you talk and just, all the things that you've been through and accomplished and all the things and just talking about it so freely. And I think it's going to help so many people, so many who are honestly feeling the same and are just, they're afraid. They're afraid to speak about it. They're afraid to show weakness. And it's just, and you just look like such a strong person who's talking about all the things that he's been through. And I love it, all of it.
Carolyn,
I
I
think
had
your
no other
book,
choice.
your podcast, I know, and that's it. You have no choice, It's great.
Well, thank you.
We talk often about preparing the cadets, whether it's the fire service, whether it's police. You mentioned 19-year-old you, in the academy. We've talked about some sort of curriculum being developed early on, and some stations do it. I will say law enforcement appears to be ahead of this game, and also the mental health game a little bit more than fire, though. I will tell from the people we have spoken to, I'm not saying they're doing it 100% correct, but more than fire. We think there's a huge void when it comes to the academies, and you can't tell people exactly what they're going to see, right? You guys have seen the unimaginable, but how to deal with it, how to handle it when you get home. Would you agree? Like there has to be something earlier on before the boots, get on the ground their first shift.
Absolutely. And I don't want to be critical of the responded disciplines or any organization, but
No.
The military and the veteran community, they're probably a good 8 to 10 years ahead of where the first responders are in this space. They've owned it and they're out front. They're looking for treatments, and first responders, especially here in Florida, are really legislation is being pushed to get that to happen. But there needs to be a top-down, bottom-up approach. I think all new supervisors, before they're promoted to supervisor or before they become, hands-on supervisors, they need to go through some type of critical incident stress management training. They have to know what those signs are and how to deal with that. Get their people help. They're the work parents for these young kids coming out, and they need to be able to guide them. I think one of the greatest benefits and privileges of being a leader is that you are responsible for ensuring that your personnel are whole, whatever that looks like. You have to do that. You owe it to them and the organization and the profession. As far as the academy, actually, let me go back to leadership. Leadership has to believe in this. It cannot be a catchy slogan. It can't be a teddy bear that goes from district to district, or a bracelet that's given out every November or May or whatever month that they choose to have critical, feelings month or whatever. It has to be something that is front and center and something that is celebrated. And as far as the academies go, these kids, and again, I call them kids because I'm retired, but these kids, this stuff has to be front loaded. And it can't be someone that comes in a white coat. Because yes, they can be there to co-teach and say, yes, there's medical validity to this. And yes, these are some of the things that can be done to help you as far as from a counselor standpoint. But you have to have somebody in there that speaks their language, who has been where they're going to walk, who understands what it means to protect and to serve, to be one of America's bravest. You have to have a mediator, because if you have somebody that's been a first responder or a veteran sitting in that class, and you send somebody in that doesn't walk the walk or talk the talk, they will know it immediately. We can smell our own before we even walk through the door. And if you come in and I'm this and I've that, no. Guys and gals that have been there and done it, they don't talk about it. They don't have to. You see it in their eyes. You see it in the way they carry themselves. You have to have someone with a pedigree to stand in front of these kids and say, this is what it is. This is how I did it wrong. This is what it looks like, what it smells like, and this is what you do to win. Because this is winning. This is winning. And it can
Doug,
be
that's
done.
why when you were talking about your wife, when we first started talking, and Carolyn and I have heard this phrase before, culturally competent. Culturally competent is your wife, the spouses of first responders, but it's also who you're talking about, who's coming in to advise these kids and give them the heads up of what's to come or possibly to come.
Absolutely. Culturally competent means I don't have to tell you what a body smells like burnt in a car. You know.
Right.
We don't have to say, there I was, and the car was not. No. Hey, I went to a critical incident. There was a traffic fatality that involved a burnt car. Check. That's all I need to know, because I know what you're talking about. I know the feeling, the sounds. Nobody has to peel that back. You can just get right into even ground and talking about what's going on.
So important. Yeah. It's just so important. It's true to have somebody that's versed and knows exactly what and it's experienced at all of those situations, because it's true. I mean, it's just going to go in one ear and out the other if somebody else comes in and can't relate.
It's true.
Doug, what would your advice be? And I don't even like asking this question, because I don't know that somebody going through it necessarily realizes they're going through it. But if they do, if a spouse is watching this, if a first responder is watching this, what is the first step when it comes to getting help?
Get over yourself. Get over yourself. For years and years and years, when I got off active duty in 2007, or when I separated from the military, my teammates told me for years, hey man, have you gone to the VA? Go to the VA. You need to get help. No, I don't rate. I broke my ankle. You guys went downrange. I didn't get blown up. So-and-so did. I didn't crash in a helicopter. So-and-so did. I don't rate. They're like, oh yeah, well, bro, you really do. No, I didn't go to combat. So I haven't been in 2 shootings. I haven't done, X number of whatevers. None of that stuff matters. There's no barrier to entry. There's no prerequisite number of traumatic calls you have to go to before you can raise your hand and say, give me some help. I think that's one of the things that we all feel in the responder community, that there's a number or a limit that we have to reach before we can punch that ticket. And that's just ridiculous, because we all come to this profession, and anything that we do with whatever luggage that we have carrying with us from childhood and regular life. And I think when first responders feel like they need to ask for help, they look at it only as, okay, this is what I experienced on the job. Wait a second. You came into this profession at 21 years old. And from 21 to 51, when you hit your 30 years and you can retire, I would say that every big event in your life is going to happen. You'll meet the person you love and marry. You'll have kids. You may lose a kid. You may lose a spouse. You may lose your parents. You may be bankrupt. You may be homeless. You may be fighting paycheck to paycheck. All of the big things in your life are going to happen at the same time. You're taking in traumatic events, sometimes 5, 6, 7 a day for years and years and years. So you don't have to have been in combat. You don't have to have been in a shootout or gone to some other type of critical incident. If you need help, raise your hand and say, I need help. Hard stop. And anybody who says you have to you didn't experience this or you need to do that, those aren't the people you need in your life. That is low class. And it's stuff like that's killing us.
Yeah. I thought about you guys this morning, probably because we had this show coming up. I was on Instagram and there was a video from some news outlet, and it was like, warning, whatever it says, sensitive content, scroll or don't watch or whatever. You guys don't get that warning. First responders don't get that warning, whether or not they want to see something when they roll up to a scene. And it just kind of like, I had an aha moment. You would think of, being raised by a firefighter or married to one for 20 years. I would have thought about that before. I don't know that people truly realize what you come face to face with, sometimes multiple times a day.
No, having that badge is I've heard it described as a ticket to a front row seat to the show you never wanted to see. And I agree with that. I mean, we see people in their worst moment. And again, and again and again. I mean, traumatic events that people that will change their lives forever. And that's my first call of the day. I'm going to have 3 more of these by lunch. And, you carry that, and you don't have time to process because we're either short staffed or the next call is coming. And, when you get off work, you've got a 5-minute drive home because a lot of the times the responders live in the areas that they serve in. So how do you process from, I was, for me, and this is in the book, I was in an officer involved shooting, and it was a full on gunfight, and we won, obviously, because I'm still breathing. But my sergeant said, "Hey, do you want to call Michelle?" And I said, "No, I'm good." And he said, are you sure? And I realized, wait a second, she's coming back from daycare and is literally going to be driving by this street any minute now. It was part of my run route from home. It was, I think, 1.3 miles from my house. So, I mean,
Wow.
like, oh, by the way, we're not going to go that way to the grocery store anymore because I was shooting on that corner. So yeah, that's a tough thing. That's tough. Yeah, we get to see all the stuff that we didn't want to see, and we got to figure out how to process that. And you're right. Nobody thinks about that because when we show up to a party, what's the worst call you ever been to?
Right.
Really?
Right.
Oh, let me peel back a lot of trauma here at my wife's Christmas party for the company. This is we're not coming back next year. We're not going to be invited. It is true. It's true. You ever shoot anybody? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doug, how old are your kids?
My daughter, she is 19, almost 20, and my son will be 18 in January.
Okay. How do your kids, what do they think now? Knowing, I mean, I'm sure they've read the book or they've heard you talking about the book enough. What do they say now? Are they like, it's okay, Dad? Or are they like, hey, we were okay? What's their reaction to you being so vulnerable and sharing this story now?
Well, my son will listen to me tell a story, and as soon as I'm done, he'll talk about wanting to go to a basketball game with his friends.
I mean, that's normal.
Yeah. So they are normal teenagers.
Yeah, good, as they should be.
And my son, again, that's his friends, girlfriend, video games. Can I go do something? Can I borrow the car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am blessed with very, very good kids. I didn't have any of the teenage drama that I hear the horror stories about. And again, that's a testament to Michelle and her involvement with the kids. And me being present physically. I'm still working through that. I have a great relationship with the kids. Everything is better here now because I am better. My daughter is an empath. She's incredible. So if I, talk to her about some of this stuff, and I did just the other day, I was like, hey, I realized this about the book, and this is how I feel. And, she just puts her head on my shoulder. She said, I'm so proud of you. And so I think, I think they are both aware of the work, at least, surface the work that I've done over the last 5 years to get to where I'm at. And specifically the last year and some change since I've retired that I've really done some deep work. They see the difference in me, and I think they're proud of me. My son's like, so, you got to buy a new car with all these book sales? I'm like, son, I don't know what you're thinking, but I will likely never make a mortgage payment with book sales. But there's not a whole lot of money in it unless you're, Stephen King or something like that. But that wasn't the point of any of this. And of course, that's where he's at. But my daughter's like, you're going to help so many people. I'm like, oh, that's the hope. But yeah, they're pretty proud of me. And Michelle doesn't waste an opportunity or miss an opportunity to say it too. So, yeah, there's just so much growth in this. It's wonderful. It really is. It's powerful. Once you own your journey and look at things in your lives and see that, yeah, I'm culpable here, or I could have done this better here. You get rid of ego, and now you're just having conversations with people, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just, what else can you ask me? I mean, it's all there. It's liberating, it's freeing, and it's peace more than anything.
That's amazing. Doug, would you recommend any kind of therapies or treatments that you've done? Maybe if somebody's going through this right now?
Yes, there are so many organizations out there right now, especially here in Florida. I know that funding has just been set up for trans. Oh, I'm going to mess it up now. I've posted about it so many times, and I just did day 6. It's the ETMS. It's magnetic stimulation, and
Okay.
that's what I'm going through now. I've done conjoint CBT CBT with Michelle. It was great because we went through it together. I did that through the VA, and I would have never have done that and said, "Hey, Michelle can come too." I'm like, "Yay!" My shield is
Right.
going to be with me, my security blanket, and I did that, and that gave me some tools on how to reprocess and think of things. The cognitive behavioral therapy helps out with that, so that gave me some tools. Um,
Okay.
if you need medication, that's going to be up to a doctor, but make sure that you are responsible and you ask questions. What is this going to do to me? What is this going to do for me? Why so many? Why not this? Why not that? I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be, make any disparaging remarks about the VA, but I've been handed so many pills and, at once that
Mm-hmm.
aren't supposed to be used together, that I felt that were just poisoning me. I
Mm-hmm.
gained a lot of weight, depression, mood swings. It was worse than anything else. And luckily, I've been able to get myself off of every bit of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that watching what you eat, watching the whole foods doing, getting better, exercise, getting sunlight, grounded, journaling. Journaling has been by far the most therapeutic thing for me. Um, just getting it out to see what you think about things. I mean, there's no ego in a piece of paper, so you're not being judged. You're just throwing it out there. Um, I've done, the cold baths. I've done sauna. Running is great. There's 800,000 cops out there and millions of first responders and veterans, and there's so many things out there that are going to work for some one person and not for others. I know there's a lot of studying being done with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, the ETMS stuff, the ice baths, psychedelics, CBD. There's so many things out there, but just find what works for you and be responsible about it. Understand that this may not work. Don't go into the sunken cost theory of, oh, I've already done this for 6 months. I need to do it for another year. Maybe it'll work. If it's not working and you're not seeing change, you need to
Mm-hmm.
go someplace else. Boulder Crest Foundation, Overwatch Collective, 220.org. There's so many things out there, so many wonderful things. And the biggest point I want to make is, what are you using to influence you? What are you bringing into your life? Stop watching the news. I stopped watching the
Right.
news a year and a half ago, and I can't tell you how happy I am. If there's a story that I hear about, I'll look into it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I have filled my algorithm with y'all, and people that
Mm-hmm.
are bringing positive messages that I need to hear when I need to hear it. And I think that's one of the bigger things: your tribe, your circle, and what's influencing you. Sleep hygiene. Put away the phones an hour and a half to 2 hours before you go to bed. Stop watching TV. Turn the lights down low. Um, get better sleep. For me, my break came when I stopped sleeping good or stopped sleeping well. And you cannot stave off of the things that you were able to handle if you're not well rested. And I think sleep and diet are 1 and 2. Yeah, there's so many things, and I've tried a lot of things. There's a lot of things I haven't tried, but whatever works for you, that's the one I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything that you just said.
Yes.
It's so basic at its foundation. I know it's not always easy to get
No,
there,
it's not.
right? But eating whole foods. It's no, 100% no, but eating whole foods, sleep, prioritizing exercise, faith.
Hmm.
When you look at it like
Faith.
that, faith is huge.
Yes.
Carolyn, I know that has been
Yes.
amazing for you.
Yes. No, yeah, it's true. Faith is number one. And then exercise, eating well, sleeping, huge. I mean, like you said, all those things, not necessarily just going into medication if you need to, then that's a different story. Please do. But try to find all the holistic routes, but faith is huge.
Yes, I actually mentioned this on one of the other podcasts, and I was watching all of these influencers, and I say that not because they're TikTokers, but people that that have experiences like mine or experiences adjacent. Sean Ryan Show, Jocko Willink, Brene Brown, Mel Robbins. I mean, there are people out there with voices, and it's generally the same message. But I'm looking at these folks, and I'm like, why are they doing so much better than I'm doing? I'm trying to do all the things. I know that I'm new at this, and it may take 5 years for this message to get some traction, but they seem to be happier than me. What is it that they're doing that I'm not? And I started listening to their messages more and more, and they just started talking about faith, their journey with faith and their belief, and whatever it is that you ascribe to, that's your business and your decision. But I have found that my faith, which is new and renewed, has led me to be a whole lot happier and to give up things that I would usually worry about. And to be honest with you, if you've read the book or listened to anything that I've said about Michelle, it was her prayers. And I even mentioned to her, I said, when I was where I was, I didn't see God in my life. And before I even really finished the sentence, she said, did it ever occur to you didn't have to see God because someone else had been praying for your safety for the last 15 years? And that hit me like nothing had ever hit me before. And it dawned on me that I'm here because of grace alone and her faith in us and her faith in God. And yeah, I was not strong enough to do it by myself. And anybody who thinks they are, good luck with that. I thought I was, and I wasn't. But I'm here now.
We're happy you're
Thank
here.
you. Me too.
And we want to get you that new car that your son was talking about.
No, he'll just use it.
that's what we do, right? That's what tell us where we can get your
Hiding in Plain Sight is available as of yesterday. You can get it on Amazon, Books A Million, Walmart.com, Barnes and Noble. It's everywhere. And it's also available on Amazon Kindle for the e-copy. I'm actually this week going to soundproof part of this room and start reading for the Audible version, which I hope to have out by Christmas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of friends mad at me. They're like, bro, I could have waited for you to read this to me. So,
I might be stereotyping here, and please don't message if I am, but I think that's huge because I know my husband, for instance, will not read a book. Okay. But he will listen to a podcast or an audiobook in his truck.
Well, that's why the influences and what you bring into your life are so important.
Yes.
Because we're listening to that stuff. This book, and I have to show it.
Please do. There we go.
Hiding in Plain Sight. When I wrote this, and I've said this a couple of times, and I didn't realize it until I actually held the author's draft in my hand. The back of the book, this is not another collection of war stories and all this motto stuff for the first responder and the vet. I realized that this book was not for them. It's my story and it's my voice in the hopes that one of them will pick it up and find something that grabs them. But we don't read this stuff. I mean, I'd had Dr. Gil Martin's book on my shelf, the Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement, for 8 years. And when I finally read it, it's like, man, wish I had this 8 years ago. And Michelle said, you did. I read it. You said you didn't need it. Yeah, I did. But this book is an apology letter for anyone who has loved me over the last 30 years. It is a love letter to myself, and it's a love letter to Michelle. This book, more than anybody else, is for the first responder or the military spouse. They are going to see parts of their life in here. They're going to see parts of their loved ones in here. And when the first responder or the vet picks this up and sees that, it's going to be a checklist to what they've gone through. Our experiences may be different, but our reactions to what it is that we do throughout our life of service, they're the same. The physiological and physical and emotional reactions that we have to these things, they're all the same. We're no different. You're not special. You're not alone. We have never been alone. And that's the message that I want to give to people. And that's the message that's in this book. It's the way forward.
Are you still journaling every day?
I am. And the reason I'm journaling now is because there's going to be a second book.
That's what I was getting to. I think there's going to be another one.
This book is actually not what it was intended to be. I started, and there was a 77,000 word rant of a journal that when I retired, that I started. And I read that, and I saw that I'd written myself in my hero's journey as a victim. I mean, I've never been a victim of anything or anyone. I don't have any villains in my life. So I scrapped it, and I started unpeeling those things. And why do I think of myself this way? And I reframed everything. And that's when Hiding in Plain Sight came out. But the things that I have learned since I put a pin in this thing in August, I learn something new every day. Every time I look at the book, every time I thumb through it, every time somebody says, "Hey, I picked this out of the book. What do you think about that?" And it reminds me, or it tells me that there are so many stories in here, but there's 10 stories behind each of these stories from a different perspective. Michelle's perspective on all of this has only been told from my perspective. The things that I have learned since this about myself and about my marriage and about my kids and just how the world works and how people are receiving this, that's a book in itself. So yeah, I'm just getting warmed up. This is my purpose, my mission, and it's going to be a thing.
Good. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have a podcast too coming up, right?
Yes. The first episode dropped yesterday. It's called Tell This Story. And
Cool.
it is, I'm hoping that it's going to be a platform for veterans, responders, and their families to create a narrative in a space where through authentic storytelling, we can get people to come into the light. I mean, I want people to own everything and just stand out there and put themselves out there. I think it would be arrogant of me to think that my story is going to give someone else permission to speak. But I'm hoping that by this example, they'll say, "Hey, this is a guy that I knew and respected, and he went through this and he threw it all out there. And man, this guy's winning now. I could do this. Look at me."
Yeah.
And if I can do that for just one person, I know this sounds hokey, but the days that I feel like this isn't going anywhere is the day that I get a text and says, "Hey, I don't know you, and I'm not ready to tell my story, but thank you for what you're doing." That's what else do you need? I need nothing in life to feed me, but that. So yeah, this is not going to end anytime soon.
Yeah. We understand that, don't we, Carolyn? With people.
Yeah, we get those messages too. So that's when we know we're on the right path.
It's magic, isn't it?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Doug White, thank you so much for chatting with us. This hour flew by.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you.
It's been an hour. Can you hold that book up one more time?
Yes, I can.
Because you shared.
The cameras, I got to hold it in front of my face.
There you go. Hiding in Plain Sight, guys, by Doug White. He listed all the places that you can get it. Tell your wife thank you on behalf of 2 first responder wives.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Doug.
Her story definitely is going to impact a lot of people along with yours, of course. We appreciate it.
Thank you. If I can ever be of any service, please don't hesitate to call me.
Thank you.
Take
care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.